Hi everyone, so welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about eyeshadows, which is one of my very favorite things to apply. It's the part of my routine that I get the most excited about, to be honest with you, because every day I do something different. I'm a huge fan of palettes. I buy them very often throughout the year. I just like having different options, different varieties. I like being able to mix different shades and create different looks and wear something different every single day. So I thought it would be fun to sort of pull out all of my larger palettes that I've purchased throughout this year so far and kind of rank them in the order of most love to not as much love. Still good. I'm not saying that any of these are terrible. If these are some of your favorites and they rank lower on my list, doesn't mean that it's a terrible product. It's just one that I like the looks that I create, but there's just something about it that just keeps me from reaching for it more often versus something else that's higher up on my list that I just want to use more, give me more, right? So I have a palette that's going to be like my number one, and it's going to be my number one for a very long time. But I wanted to start this video off with the Anastasia Cosmos palette. This came out several months back, and I really enjoy duochromes. I think they're really beautiful. I think you can really elevate a very simple eyeshadow look. You can do an all matte look and then just pop a duochrome or something sparkly on the lid, and it just transforms it. And I do like that aspect of this palette where you do have some duochromes, very creamy, metallic kind of finishes. I don't really care for this sort of pinky shade here because the glitter in this shade is a gold glitter. The color is pretty, but the glitter itself is really big, larger pieces, and I just don't like the way that looks on the eye. It almost looks like I took craft glitter and just kind of tapped it on the eye, whereas the other ones, it's just softer, smaller particles of glitter where it just looks different on the eye. And if you have this palette, you may have noticed that the sparkle and the glitter in this one here in the middle is different than the sparkle that's in the blue, or this one here that has that sort of green to yellow, gold, blue sort of reflect. This shade here that's called Supernova is my favorite one out of the bunch. It is so pretty. It looks pink, it looks blue, lavender, kind of like a violet-y shade. Then you get different tones of pink. It's really, really beautiful and super, super special. The mattes are great, but I think for me, the problem is that whenever I use these duochromes and I go to apply my eyeliner ends up not looking as bold and as intense. So if I do a black liquid liner, a brown, or even like a really creamy, like cold type of pencil that has intense pigment, it never looks bold. It always looks sort of mixed in with the pigment of these duochromes, and I don't really like that. And then when I use my liquid liners, I can see that the liquid liner tip on my pen is covered in this sort of formula, so then I have to wipe it off, and I feel like I'm wasting my liquid liner formula doing that. So I think for me, I would have to use these and maybe skip the liner, or maybe use like a gel, like creamy, like pot liner with an angled brush. Maybe that might be a better option for me. But that's really the reason why I kind of just don't reach for this as often, because I do like my liner to be noticeable. If I take the time to apply it, I want you to be able to see that. And these just tend to kind of mix in with that liner. So that's why I'm going to put this in my number 5 slot, because it's just not one, it's not terrible. I'll keep using it. I'm sure you'll see it in a tutorial in the future, but it's just one for those reasons I choose other things. So it's not bad. If you really love this one, then obviously it's a great palette. It's a great formula. We may not have the same opinion on it, and that's okay. That's what makes us, you know, all different. And if this is your favorite, then continue using it and loving it, because it's a good formula. And I feel like I'm going to push myself to do more looks with this one for sure. The 4th palette for this year is actually one of my more recent ones. And I am very partial to this brand because it's my favorite high-end brand, and I've always been thrilled with everything about this brand. So when I look at this product or products from this line, the packaging is always A+. The formulas, the way it blends, the way it wears, and then the end result once I'm done with my makeup, it's always something that I like. I really like that sort of vibe that I get from this brand. I don't like the price point because it is a little bit expensive, but it is Charlotte Tilbury. This one definitely stuck in there because this one recently came out a couple weeks ago, and I have to include it. I have reached for this so much since I got it. I'm between this one and my number 1 pick, because this one has those glitter shadows that tend to be more topper type of shades. But I think what brings this to number 4 in this video, even though this is a fairly newer product on the market, is the fact that these mattes are just absolutely incredible. I have a palette of hers that has the same texture of different matte tones, and I really do enjoy using that palette, and I use it often, sometimes when I need to do a quick look off camera and I'm not really thinking about being too elaborate with my looks or my steps, just something easy. But the formula on these, they're velvety, they're smooth, and I also like this because it's very cohesive. Start to finish, I can do an entire look with this palette versus having just a bunch of glitters and not really having any mattes, having to bring in another palette, other single shadows. It just makes it a little bit too fussy. So I like having palettes that offer a lot of variety. I can do these sort of sparkly shades, just that, and mascara. I can put some of these mattes with it. This pink is a really nice shade. It's not like a sickly looking pink. And this one here that kind of looks a little blue and silvery is extreme when it comes to the pigment. Like, check that out. That is just smooth like butter. So smooth. And like I said, it's one of her newer products that came out for the holiday season this year, but it quickly has become one that I keep in my rotation because I just love it. I love the brand. I love the products. Need I say more? Palette number 3 is going to be my Natasha Denona Yucca Palette. I was late to this. I did not buy this when it first came out because I normally don't gravitate towards the green tones. And you probably gather that from looking at the exterior packaging, and when you open it, you can definitely tell that there is a very distinctive green color story to this palette. So you have to like those tones in order to really appreciate this and really get your $69 worth out of this palette. And this one is very fall-like, so I'm going to get a lot of use out of this in the coming months as we head into the fall, cooler temperatures, and the winter season that's right around the corner, unfortunately. I'm going to get a lot of use out of this, but I do really like this, and this one holds kind of a special place because it sort of just got me to love olive tones even more, like those kind of like olivey greens. So you have kind of like those shades here with these mattes, and then you have these greens. This one's a little bit softer, not as metallic as this one here. This here has like a bit of a purpley kind of tone, and it looks like it probably doesn't really go very well with the color story, but it's one of my favorites. This one is quickly becoming like my go-to formula, and I've been using a lot of Natasha Denona palettes lately in eyeshadows, and this one specifically I enjoy, and it's kind of special because I do like the olive tones. I like the greens, and I kept seeing photos and just images of this palette and looks just popping up on my Instagram. I just felt like the universe was trying to tell me something because I'm like, do I really need to have this palette? And so I bought it, and I was like, you know what, this is probably going to be something I will use for some looks, maybe do some kind of fall type looks when we get to that time of the year, and maybe do here and there, but not really thoroughly enjoy it as much. But I loved it. I really do enjoy all the looks that I've created with this, and this just seems completely out of my wheelhouse, and it is, but I really like it. I like how it pushes me out of the boundaries and out of my comfort zone. And my second palette, number 2, is the Italian Spritz from Too Faced. This has been a palette that I have loved for several months, and this one holds a special place in my sort of collection for me because this is the palette that sort of got me out of using the same sort of tones. I am very, I don't want to say boring when it comes to eyeshadow, but I like the neutrals, the browns, the warm tones. I don't do anything super colorful and elaborate and just way out there. I like to just stick with those sort of neutrally type of colors. And I decided to go for this palette because I wanted something different. I wanted to try color, but I also didn't want to spend a whole ton of money, and I didn't want to have a bunch of different colorful palettes that I knew I wasn't going to reach for very consistently. So I bought this one. And let me tell you, this palette is just absolutely incredible. This is a beautiful formula. The mattes are pigmented and easy to work with and extremely blendable. These sort of metallic shades, they have a sort of creaminess to them. There's almost like a kind of, I don't want to say glue type of texture to it, but there's just something different. It feels like a cream. You can apply it like a powder, blend like a powder. They wear beautifully. They're just, I am just bananas about this palette because I just love these colors. This is Capri Fun, right? No, Sin Sin. Sorry, Capri Fun is the orange one. So Sin Sin, this is Ciao Bellini. This one here is the Spritz and Glitz, which is that sort of ultraviolet pinky purple type of shade. And then you have this one here, which is the dark one that has a little bit of like a dark base and then like a greenish kind of shimmer to it. It's Como After Dark. Just to show you just a few of the shades in here. Do you see how creamy and reflective that is? It's like butter, but there's something really different in this formula. It feels a bit more emollient than anything I've tried from Too Faced in the past. And I used to have their chocolate bar palettes, all the ones that came in this metal tin. And I had those, I decluttered them because they would be like very, very old, beyond expired, okay? And I remember really liking those palettes and really enjoying the sort of formula. But I feel like there's something very unique about this. And if you have this palette and you've noticed that compared to maybe their holiday release, and you have to use your finger to apply it. If you use a brush, you're not gonna get this on the lid. You're not with a brush. I'm sorry. You have to use the finger to sort of swirl it, pick up the product, and just tap this onto your lid or your under eye area, whichever, you know, lower lash line, eyes, whatever it is that you want to do with this. You have to really look at that color. Oh, I just love this palette. It's just so good, which is why it's number 2. All right, so we're down to palette number 1. And I don't know, if you've been watching me for several weeks now, if you're new to the channel, can you guess? If you've been watching my videos for a while, you probably already knew that this was going to be something that was on my radar and that I was going to buy and that I was going to love, because it is me. I absolutely love this palette. I'm wearing it today. It's the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. This is my number one. Number 1. Yep. I adore this palette. This palette is me to a T. I love the fact that there's a sprinkling of some warmth with the peachy tones in here, and you have 2 shades like that. I love the sort of coolness about this palette. Those cool tones are really nice and pretty. These colors, they all come together beautifully. Today I have several shades on my lid. I have mixed the sort of sparkly topper shades. There's so much texture and variety in here. You have mattes. You have some that are kind of creamy feeling. You've got some really metallic that are almost like liquid metal. Then just some classic shimmers. Then you have some glittery, sparkly toppers with a more translucent base. Like this pink one here, it's a bit of a softer kind of sheen with the pigment. But you get sparkle, which I have that in the inner corner. And then sheen, which is a little bit more kind of goldeny and more peach. But it's mostly just a sparkle kind of topper type shade. I have that over the outer half of my lids, and I kind of layered a few shades together. And let me just kind of swatch some of these. If you have not seen this palette in person, look at this. Like, this here is called Filigree, and this is probably one of my favorites. And then Muse, I will just kind of swatch it on my wrist. Not the best location for swatching. I just have such a great time doing looks with this, and it's one that I know I'm going to love. No matter what I do with this palette, whether it's a simple look or like today where I try to add as many of these to my eyes as possible, it's always a win for me. And I don't have any complaints. And that is why I have to give it to, it's the number 1 slot for this year, because it truly is something that is so special. And I just absolutely adore this palette. The packaging is just very simple, but there's just something really nice. Of course, it's dirty, full of fingerprints, so just kind of ignore that. I need to clean that because that does bother me. The finger like swatches all over it. But you have the little pinholes in the back where you can pop these out and sort of rearrange them if you want. You can honestly, if you have other palettes from Natasha Denona, they all come with little pinholes, so you can sort of take some out and recreate your own version of your perfect everyday palette, your perfect go-to palette, your seasonal palette, your special event palette. That's another great feature about this, that you can really sort of change this up. And just because this is how it comes laid out, the colors, when you get the product in the mail, you can take these out and rearrange them how you so please and how you want to use them and what makes the most sense to you if you don't like this sort of layout here. I could only pick 2 palettes. I would do the I Need a Nude and then the Italian Spritz from Too Faced for those sort of pops of color, those kind of fun, I want to do something different out of the box days where I can sort of use this entirely for that type of look, or I can kind of pair the 2 together and just have the best of both worlds, because both of them have really great formulas. I would say Natasha Denona is a step up from Too Faced for me personally, formula-wise, but this palette, do not sleep on this. If you can get this and you like these colors, check this out. like I said, it's definitely worth the investment on that. And absolutely, this is definitely worth the investment. And I know that the sale for Sephora is going to be coming around the corner right as we are approaching those holiday months. So it'll be a great time to save a little bit of money on Natasha Denona palettes. So I think it's a great time to consider it if you are looking into this brand. If you want to try some of her eyeshadow formulas and you're new, you can definitely try the midis. Also, you know, if you don't want to purchase something as big as the midi size palettes from Natasha Denona, she does have these sort of smaller 5-pan palettes that you can purchase. I have a few of these that I really like. They're smaller sizes, but the formula is just as good as the larger palettes. You're not getting less quality in something like this. So check those out. Those are much more affordable and you can try different ones, different color stories. There you have it. Those are my top palettes so far from this year that I absolutely have been enjoying, and ones that, like my number 5, needs to be shown some more love. But I'm ranking all of the palettes that I got this year so far, and I hope that this video was helpful. It was so fun to swatch and play with makeup, and now I have sparkles and shimmer all over my hands, and it's kind of fun. I know my kids would just love to be in here right now playing with these. So check out the description box. Everything will be listed and linked for you down below. Don't forget to subscribe. If you are a subscriber already, thank you so much for showing some love and support. It means more than you'll ever know. You can also pay me a visit on Instagram. We can chat and be friends there, and you can tune into my life off camera. I post there periodically some personal type of things with my family. So check it out. It's always here on the screen, and I will talk to you very soon. Take care, you guys, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.